like vets of working at Amazon, and you still work at you work out in Joliet, right?
Everybody in the corporate world makes their money off of stock anyways. Why not extend some of that to the workers? Now it's still not quite as in my mind as safe as money in the bank from a bonus or actual profit sharing. You're taking a risk with stock, but there is a fairly high reward potentially for that. But none of these things are on the table. They're raising the wages, which is good. But like when you look at overall compensation compared to the profits, being reaped in, it's minuscule. When Andy Jassy can make 6,400 times what the average Amazon worker makes, there's room for us. Okay.
Yeah.
And, especially those of us that have committed years of our life to where we've worked so cheaply, they've made an enormous amount of money off our labor. They have made already an enormous amount of money. And that you only get that kind of profit margin on an individual employee. You only make that kind of money off an employee if they do something long term and they make sacrifices sort of early on. So I can understand incentivizing lower turnover by, incentivizing tenure. But, it's kind of crazy sometimes too when you have new people that are coming in making 18, 19 bucks an hour and people that have been there 2 years.
Bonus.
Right, which we don't get anything, which I've heard plenty of people get screwed on that. So that's not even a fully trust. Yeah, they get screwed on their bonus, but they come in making $3 or $4 more than we started at, which I don't get into the game of pointing a finger and saying they're taking our money. But what I'm saying is that you've got people like myself that have been there for 4 years. In total, I've received $2.15 in raises. 1 year it was only 15 cents. And then we made a bunch of noise and I collected like a few thousand petition signatures in my area at different facilities, along with the efforts across the country from everybody else that was doing
you're
stuff.
Real, bro. Because as soon as they see, and that's one thing I wanted to say too, we need to start teaching people, even on like our platforms, how we were like you need to learn how to organize against your employer. Like you should like pass down some knowledge that we got, because people just kind of don't feel empowered and they don't realize how much power they and their coworkers have. But we know that if they actually just put a little energy into it and talk to a couple people, they could really make some change in their area or in their building. Especially you were going to other buildings and everything. I switch buildings on a constant basis. Like I'll be like at a different building here and there. But when you go to other buildings on your time off, because you know that this is something wrong going on, that we need
and you have a legal right that they can't mess with.
Exactly. So another thing I was going to ask you about right quick while I got you here is the new UPT policy, because you still work at one of those buildings, right, where you're walking like 20 miles a day and you're in a facility. Are you still a picker, or you changed departments, or what?
No, I'm a picker. Part of my personal story is that you may or may not remember when I first started off in all of this kind of kicked off for me in part because I felt like I was retaliated against for not wanting to go into their management track and for having more of a labor organizing mindset. So they actually stuck me in the PAC department for 6 months, wouldn't allow me to cross train and anything. This is after I was an ambassador. I trained people. I problem solved. I had discussed moving up to be a process guy. Right. I did a lot in my first.
Oh, but they also did the bait and switch, the donkey and the carrot stuff with you with the ambassador and the potential PA, the seasonal PA. They play you for a little bit, let you run around. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and when I started, they started approaching me about, hey, there's a PA position opening. I told them straight out, I'm like, look, I don't think that the amount of time that you're asking me to commit already is worth the money. And I don't think that getting an extra $1 or $2 an hour is going to compensate it better. Now, if you want to talk, and I actually made this point recently on a TikTok video. I dove into a content creator that studies cults, and I'd like to mention this. But cult-like behavior is getting people to sacrifice financially and exploiting their labor. That's a huge part of the cults. And I found it interesting that when they approached me to be in management, I was not told about making an amount of money a year. I was not told what the job responsibilities were. I was not shown a path to financial success anyways by offering me numbers, stock options. This is what it could mean for you financially. if you moved up. Instead, they were more determined to get me to study their principles. They wanted to indoctrinate me, in my opinion. Right. They wanted to indoctrinate.
DUZINSKAS podcast only on YouTube. DUZINSKAS podcast only on YouTube.